Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar this morning, Unlock the Power of Your Differentiators. We're glad you're here with us. My name is Eric Moneyham. I'm an associate consultant here with the Florida Small Business Development Center at UCF. Today's speaker who I'll be introducing shortly is Mr. Michael Towns, a consultant here with the SBDC at UCF. So thank you for joining us this morning. Before I introduce Michael, I want to go over a couple of housekeeping rules here. We're glad you're here. You'll find on the right-hand panel, the control panel for GoToWebinar, we have today's presentation available for download in the handout section. We encourage everyone to download that for future reference and to follow along if you'd like. And then we have a questions box there. We want this to be interactive. We want to answer as many questions as we can. So feel free to ask your questions at any time. I'm going to be on here monitoring the event, relaying questions to Michael, and we're going to make sure we answer those at the end of the presentation. We're going to have a designated Q&A period. And now a little bit about the SBDC. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our organization or what we do, we're the Small Business Development Center here hosted by the University of Central Florida. We operate in an 8-county region in Central Florida. And we're funded through the United States Small Business Administration, the state of Florida, and other public and private partners. And basically what we are is we're an economic outreach organization for the state university system to try to increase entrepreneurial growth and activity in our state's region, and hopefully provide economic impact and create new jobs to help grow our state. So enough about us. I want to introduce you to our speaker today, Michael Towns, who's on the screen here. Michael has spent the last 30+ years in sales and sales management positions for both small and Fortune 500 businesses. He's an entrepreneurial leader specializing in new business development and building sales organizations. He can develop marketing and sales strategies to drive gains in revenue, market share, and profitable performance. He is purpose-driven with a counselor consultative sales approach that cultivates relationships and retains customer satisfaction. He has a passion for sales, teaching sales, and helping others succeed. So we're really glad Michael's doing this presentation today. We don't run this topic often, so it's going to be good. So with that, Michael, I'll let you take over.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for that introduction. I'm really excited to be here with so many small business owners trying to understand what makes them different and unique. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you're going to come away with a few things that will help you identify, what your unique proposition is. So my first slide here is Simon Sinek is a great entrepreneur. And if you haven't watched him on YouTube or you haven't seen his videos, I would highly recommend them. And he basically developed this golden circle, as he calls it. And basically on the outside of the circle is the what you do, what organization does. It's the product or services that they offer, the widget that they sell, or the service that they offer. The next circle, if you will, is the how you do it. What kind of makes you different? We're going to talk a little bit more about the how you do it. And that's kind of the differentiator section in there. But the core of what you are and who you are is the why you're in business. And I think every entrepreneur should sit down and understand what is going on with why their business is in business. Is it to serve the greater good? Is it to provide a unique product or service? Is it to solve a problem? Is it to, sell the business to your next generation? So the why is important. So we'll start out with, put yourself in your customer's shoes. I can't emphasize this enough, where sometimes a lot of salespeople and a lot of business owners really think they think about their customers, but they really don't actually put themselves in their shoes. As harsh as it may sound, you may be selling, an engineering service, or you may be selling a scent service, but if you're not actually walking in your client's shoes, then you're not really understanding that why. What is the purpose? And telling somebody something is not selling. And too many people, when we're into a sales scenario, they get into what I call present mode. And all they do is talk about themselves, and they don't understand and discover what's going on with the clients. What problem are you trying to solve? What solution are you trying to bring? Because every interaction should be about building a relationship and discovering and peeling the onion and asking questions and understanding. It's not really important what you do, it's how it impacts the customer and how it really solves their problem as it really relates to them. So the first thing you need to do in building a relationship is building a bridge of trust. And this is so important in this day and age, because with the internet and with so many resources available, people can check you out, right? Once you call to schedule an appointment with them, they can go to your LinkedIn page, they can go to your website, they can do all this other things. So they already have an impression of you before you even call or meet with them. So it's about building that trust and credibility. And you build trust through empathy. Understanding their point of view and credibility is so important. Propriety, based on the client's expectations. What do you look like? How do you present yourself? Competence, are you able to articulate what's going on? Do you have your back wheel skills? Do you know your product or service backwards and frontwards? Do you understand their needs? Are you competent? And then what's your intent? Intent is so important in building trust. Do you really care about the customer? Do you really have their best interests in mind? Or is it all about you in the sale? Or is it all about you in making money? Or is it all about you? You need to discover their needs and their wants and their desire so that you can build that relationship, which builds the bridge of trust. And some people, we get into this conversation all the time with clients is, what's the difference between a feature and a benefit? Well, a feature is what something is. The car is red. The car has 4 wheels. The car drives down the road. All cars basically have the same features. But what is the benefits? It's what it does. What it makes you feel. There's a difference between, a Chevy Cavalier and a Bentley. They both basically are basic transportation, right? They both have a steering wheel. They both have 4 wheels. They both get you down the road. They both have air conditioning, presumably. But what is the it factor? What it does? It makes you feel the aspirational. So we really need to talk about that benefits. So many times we just feature dump on people. This is the grocery list of things that we do, and we don't really think about how that feature relates as a benefit. So you change that benefit into what it does for the client. So how do you differentiate your business? And I love this picture. It's, I'm a big Swiss Army knife guy, and I'm like, holy cow, this thing has, a ton of options. But, everybody has so many different options. There's platitudes out there that basically we say, our customer service is better, our people are better, our process is better, our product is better. But every company can say that because that's too broad. What is specific about your customer service that makes you different? What is about your people that makes you different? That's what we're going to talk about. Every business is out there doing something, and we need to differentiate ourselves. So we need to develop a differentiation strategy. And this is an approach that basically says, I'm going to really look at what makes me unique and different. So you've got to get out of our head. Most of the business owners I talk to, they know what their differentiators are. They just have trouble, A, articulating them, B, putting them in writing, especially talking about them in front of a client. So how do we develop that strategy? By developing that strategy, we position ourselves to get out of the price game, get out of the Me Too game, and get out of all those different unique things that people get tangled in the weeds to. So it's about relationships. It truly is. And we talked about that in the building trust. You think about who you buy from yourself personally, who you feel comfortable buying from. It's because you have a great relationship. You could probably find something cheaper. You could probably find something quicker, but it's about the relationship. So one of the things that I always say is if you have current customers, the best thing you can do is sit down with your current customers and ask one simple question. Why do you love me? Why do you love our business? You know, love is a big word, but it is true. It goes back to that, you know, have your customers who like you, are trusting you already, have a relationship with you already, sit down with them and ask, you know, what are some of the deciding factors you use to go with my company or with me? What do we do great? You know, what are the things that differentiate us from the person you had before doing this, or the other 6 companies that, you know, were in here bidding on this? What makes us your go-to vendor? And what could we improve on? You know, those simple questions will get you details and that relationship building, and your clients will actually appreciate it because you're asking them questions about you, but it's really about them. So keep that in mind. So decide what you want to be known for, research your target audience, develop differentiators, tell your stories, and create a brand image. So, you know, this whole thing about unicorns, and you know, we love unicorns because unicorns are basically that unique company. How do you become that unicorn company? It's not about making money, because that will come if you do a great job for your clients. I think a lot of business owners, you know, they get tangled in the weeds with the finances and they don't understand that it's about the clients and staying on purpose and staying in tune with the client. So you must have an idea of your expertise in your business. You can't sell to everyone. You know, that is so important. You know, you have to really identify your niche market. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here too. So research your target audience. It is so important that you do this. You know, researching, you know, if you're an engineering firm or you sell widgets or you do bridal gowns or you dig ditches, or you sell to the government. I mean, the government is a huge entity, right? I mean, you have city, local, county, state, federal, and then every branch within the military, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of the Navy. You could go on and on and on, and it just could be overwhelming, right? So what you really need to do is develop that target audience. And within that target audience, we also talk a lot about what we call your know, like, and trust list. And that know, like, and trust list is, go into your LinkedIn profile and see who's in your LinkedIn profile that you can contact that can help you. Who did you go to high school with? Who did you go to college with? Who's in your circle? Because you're probably 1 degree away from a key client or prospect and you don't even know it. And you can use that person to help you leverage that relationship. And it's so important to target that niche. If you have the best widget in the world and you try to sell it to everyone, your message is going to be all over the place. You're not going to customize your message. So it's very important as we build these differentiators that you target your differentiators specifically to your audience. So how do you develop your differentiators? And right before we did the webinar, I was going through LinkedIn and I came across this video from The Office. And I'm a big Office fan. And there's a lot of great sales stuff, what to do and what not to do from that show. But this was a video where a couple of the sales guys were sitting in front of a prospect. And, I don't know if you know The Office. If you don't know The Office, they sell paper goods and office supplies. So very competitive market, right? You can go to the big box, you can go to these huge corporations, but if you're a small business and selling office supplies, how do you differentiate yourself? So basically, one of the salespeople asked to borrow the prospect's phone, and they called on the phone, and it got put on hold immediately. And the prospect's kind of looking at them like weird and stuff like that. And then they got their cell phone out and called their company, and it answered on the first ring. And he said to the prospect, "We're still on hold with Mr. Big Box." And then he leaned in, the sales rep leaned in and said, "Here's my cell phone number, here's my pager number, here's my other cell phone number, here's my pager number. I don't ever take vacation, I never sleep, I'm for you, I'm with you, I'm here 24 hours, 7 days a week. Will the Big Box guy be there for you?" And they were like, "No." So There's a differentiator right there. How do you, now you don't have to be available 24 hours, but what makes your customer service different? What makes your product different? It's really get it out of your head. And the best thing you can do is after you talk to your clients to find out what's so great about your business and how you can help, is they're going to tell you, we love you because your customer service, we get you on the first ring. You have a 2-hour response time. You're guaranteed this, breakdown rate, whatever that is. If you're manufacturers, within these specifications, we get, delivery within this time frame. You have to get very specific. So in developing your differentiator. So on this next slide, I brainstormed with a client a few months ago, and these are on the left-hand side. These were the differentiators we came up with, and they're really good, but can they be tweaked a little bit? And what we did is we took, this was they happened to sell coffee, so fresh coffee delivered within 72 hours of roasting and avoid flavor loss. So how can we turn that around to what's in it for the client? So think fresh, coffee delivered, avoid flavor loss. So you're right there changing it up a little bit. Customer solutions for specific needs. We listen and provide solutions. So you're telling your prospect that, one of our differentiators is, unlike other competitors, we listen to what your needs are. So demo machines, try us, no obligation. So that took his differentiator of, we have demo machines where our competitors don't, and we kind of turned it around into a try us, no obligation. No loaner machines provided to avoid downtime. We changed it to never be without, same day emergency service. So this is something that differentiates him. Swap with a fully refurbished and sanitized machines once a year. And we changed it to think safety. We deep clean, we sanitize, we make sure that your machine is performing at the highest optimal performance. Train a dedicated individual with a basic cleaning. And we includes training. A dedicated individual will learn basic cleaning and maintenance. And then upgrade anytime. That was a differentiator. Some people had locked them into contracts, 2 years. You've got to stick with the same machine. You can never upgrade. What happens if I add people? I have to break that contract. I have to get into a new contract. No, they have a simple and transparent agreement. Upgrade machines as your needs change. So this is just some kind of examples of those left-hand side. They're great differentiators, but then they can actually be upgraded a little bit and changed a little bit to think about the client. So one of the other things is tell your story. I was on the phone with a client a few months ago, and they had a really unique product. They had this asphalt that was developed that was more environmentally friendly, more environmentally safe, and it did not need replacing as frequently as the asphalt that we use today. So not only did it save money, it wasn't as, it was more durable than the current asphalt, it lasted longer, but it was also environmentally safe because it didn't use as many chemicals. So he basically pulled up his PowerPoint presentation, and he was like presenting to an engineer. And we're like, okay, so so you always got to know your audience when you're telling your story. Who's your customer, who's your prospect? You've identified your target audience, but are you targeting, decision makers? Are you targeting influencers? Who are you targeting? And then develop your story. So when he was presenting to the engineer, it was all about, the details of, it's 0.0 nanograms, it's this, it's this, it's this. And the engineer basically came back and said to him, this is great, but we're invested in this other technology. We can't replace all the equipment. We're going to lose people if we don't replace the asphalt as frequently and all of that. So we're sitting there thinking, is this engineer that actually lays the road down your prospect? And we said, no, your prospect is actually the people probably in the legislature who care about sustainability, probably environmental groups that care about the sustainability of these roads. and understanding what the big picture is. And then, you know, what's your story? Why did you get this product when maybe one of the big boys did not? So the journey of you owning your own business, the journey that got you to where you are, the journey that takes you to, I worked for maybe a big company and I decided to branch off and break off and start my own business. What was that journey? Because that's about building relationships and trust and credibility. So never discount the fact that people want to know about you and your journey, even though it's about them. You want to relate to them. You want to build that credibility. You want to build that trust. So you want to create a brand image, and that doesn't matter if you're selling to the government or you're selling to mom and pop, or you're selling to whoever. So as I said earlier, people are going to check you out. So you want to make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. You want to have a company LinkedIn page. You want to do Facebook, Instagram, all those social medias, and you want to keep up with it. You just don't want to have it sit there. You know, that basically tells your story. And then your website. You want to make sure that you're really branding yourself on your website and your differentiators on your website. And you want to also make sure it's easy for your prospects to find you. If you have multiple ways, if you sell to the government and commercial and residential, you want to have a commercial icon. You want to have a residential icon. You want to have an icon. So you want to be 3 clicks away from finding important information, because your branding and your story build trust and credibility. So let's talk about your elevator speech. And you know, we've role played this a lot on different calls I've been on, and it's really fun. And what I usually share with people is elevator speech is kind of like dating, you know. And it's been a while since I've dated. I've been married a long time, but imagine, if you will, going on a date, and that person across from you does all the talking, kind of like what I'm doing now, right? It's like blah 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 blah. What happens to you if they're doing all the talking? You kind of zone out, you kind of start doing something else. You look at, there's a TV behind the person, you start watching the football game, you know, you might be doing email, you know, so you're zoning out. So, you know, you really want to get good at developing your messaging in a very good and concise way. So your elevator speech should not be more than 20 or 30 seconds. And you need to basically, jot down the notes. And you need to know kind of, maybe you have some differentiators that you plug in and out based on, hey, I know the audience, I'm going to a chamber event, and I know there might be some prospects here, or I'm going to a trade show, and there's specific prospects. So develop your elevator speech to kind of target that audience a little bit. And even within your elevator speech, you want to make sure that you give a differentiator. You tell them, you only have 20 or 30 seconds. So you're telling them, hi, I'm Michael Towns. I'm with the SBDC. We help small businesses through our programs grow sales, develop business plans, help their financial strategies. And what we help you do is we do these webinars and give you real tools to help you walk away with things you can take and do right now. What do you do? And that's the next part of the elevator speech, is really you've got to ask a question. If you're the one doing the talking first, then you give your elevator speech first. If you're the one doing it second, then you've heard what they do, you have a dialogue. So when you're developing your elevator speech, you want to fine tune it. Write down what comes to mind. Get it out of your head. It can be 5 pages at first. Then start cutting out the jargon and the details. Make it strong and powerful sentences and remove unnecessary words. Connect the phrases and the sentences to each other, and then memorize the key points. And the biggest thing is practice. Practice in front of the mirror, practice with your significant other, practice with business partners, practice with your customers, practice with us. Very important. And then, have you really answered the questions? And we really haven't talked a lot about this, but clients really sit down and think, what's in it for me and why should I care? And you need to answer those questions when you're developing your differentiators and your elevator speech. And like I said, create different versions for different business situations. It's so important that your elevator speech is really your professional business card. And when you're going to a networking event, you want to kind of go with a goal in mind, right? And what happens a lot of times is you gravitate towards the people you know, right? So you go to, hey, Frank, you've done business with him for the last 25 years. You sit there and anchor with him and you sit next to him for the meal or whatever it is. But your goal should really be, I know there's going to be 30 people at this event. My goal is to meet 10 of those people tonight. And if I anchor with Fred, I can't do that. So really what you're going to do is you're going to identify those 20 people from the list, if you had a list of attendees, or just scan the room and say, hey, I don't know these 10 people. And you're going to go up and introduce yourself to those 10 people. And it's going to be real comfortable for you because you have a great elevator speech. You know what to do. And then you know the questions to ask, and then it becomes a dialogue. And then the scary thing is too many people at these networking events go into what I call before present mode or selling mode. And that's not where you're at, right? So what I always say is begin with the end in mind, begin with a purpose, a process, and a payoff. If the purpose of networking is to find 5 prospects, and the process is I'm going to tell them a little bit about them, and you're going to find out a little bit about me, and then my goal is to schedule a follow-up meeting or the next step. But if I try to sell them at the networking event, it's almost like, really, are you building trust and credibility? Maybe you found that unicorn that works really well, but they have to give you permission, right? And then the permission is them asking you questions and them engaging in the dialogue. But then you want to kind of stop that conversation when it's appropriate and find the next person and never anchor on anybody. Because I've seen so many people go to a 2-hour networking event and meet 2 people. And maybe you spent $60 and you're paying $500 to be a member of that chamber. And you really aren't getting an ROI from that because you're not getting any leads from it. Well, what I always say is look in the mirror and say, what can I do differently? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and doing a different result. And I think that really developing your skill set at, divining what your clients want, what your clients need, putting yourself in their shoes and understanding the differentiators, and then getting a great elevator speech and having that dialogue back and forth like you're on a date. Tell me what high school you went to. You tell me what high school I went to. What college did you go to? And you're having a conversation. You're building trust and credibility, and that relationship is more important. And when you go into talking about what you can do and problem solving, you're peeling that onion back and you're understanding, and they're telling you how to sell them instead of you telling them, because telling is not selling. Understanding, listening, and problem solving is where we are in the 21st century. So I know we covered a lot. I mean, I know it wasn't, an hour long, but I will tell you that, we will have some questions that have already come up. So Eric, if you want to read those questions, I'm happy to do so. This is a topic I'm passionate about, and really the biggest thing is, schedule an appointment with me, in the next few weeks, and really we can start role playing this. We can start getting it out of your head, getting it on paper, really defining your why, really defining what differentiates you, and then what you can do to go to market and differentiate yourself. So Eric, let's have some questions.
Great, thank you, Michael. That was a great presentation, and it's great that you're passionate about sales and that's your expertise. So we appreciate that. So we had some real good questions here. One of the first questions here is, I know many attendees here have been to some of our PTAC events, and they were wondering when they're going to sell to the government or they're meeting a government buyer, I mean, is there a certain methodology they should take to differentiate between government and private sector, or is there overlap, or what would your advice be?
It truly is the same. I mean, no matter your vertical, whether you're selling to the government, you're selling to commercial, you're selling to residential, what makes the government kind of unique is their process, right? So one of the things is the capability statement. And right there on a good capability statement is your differentiators section. They have a core competency, which are your features, your past performance, and your differentiators. So we've brainstormed with a lot of clients to get your differentiators right there on what you send to a purchasing manager. Because as we talk about in the government contracting, say for example, a contract is up in 6 months. Well, someone's the incumbent and they've been around that for a long time, and they have a relationship with that government entity. And then there's probably groupies around that government contract that have been kind of around that, building relationships with the project manager or the program manager, the procurement officer. So they've built that trust and credibility. Now you're coming in maybe at an RFP level bid and they don't know you from Adam. So how do you articulate those differentiators? Well, you might have to write them down. You might be able to get a call with the procurement officer to talk about those. So the key here is one of the clients we were talking to a couple of weeks ago, he wasn't grasping this whole how does it relate to government. And I said, well, think about it for a minute. You're a general contractor and you hire subs. How do you hire your subs? What questions do you ask of your subs? And he said, well, I asked them about their business and what they do. So that's the what. They bulldoze roads, and are they good at it? They say they are. I look at their past performance. Did they do it for this department or that department? But then I kept asking a couple more questions. What really makes them different? Well, you build that relationship. Do I trust the gentleman or lady that's across from me? Are they going to deliver on their promise? And how do you articulate that in writing, right? So that's the key.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Next question here. This is a good one. How do you differentiate yourself when you sell a product but you don't control the price? That is, we the sellers, so through the service they provide, how can they differentiate when they don't have control over the price?
That's a great question, because price should not really be a differentiator, but unfortunately, we've trained ourselves in the buying mode to, price is important. Amazon has really driven the price. You can buy the same product 10 cents cheaper with free delivery, and it's the price. Price should be a kind of an ancillary thing. And if you're selling on price, it's really a race to the floor. You can't compete with Amazon and some of the big boys. So what you really do is around that product, what can you do differently? Can you deliver it better, faster? Can you provide a different warranty around that than your competitors? Can you do free returns? Can you get ancillary products around that help with that? Is there partners that you can partner with to enhance that product beyond what just the normal product? Just like I did in the office example, paper is paper is paper, but if I need the paper tomorrow and I can't get a hold of the guy that's my supplier because I'm on hold for 20 minutes, but I can call the guy right now and get it this second, that to me is customer service. So, you really got to differentiate yourself, and the price is your only differentiator. We really need to brainstorm the why you are in business, and that will get your differentiators out.
Another question here. When you do have a specific product and you're taking the steps, you're listening to customers, trying to solve their problems, how do you as a small business go about molding your current product to their specific needs?
It's a great question, It's really what benefits and features you emphasize to them, right? Because it's kind of the difference between, the Chevy and the Bentley, right? You've got, obviously a different price point there and a different audience. So you got to know your customer, know your audience, right? So, if you're in a niche market and you're selling to a specific vertical, say you're selling to, all women age 45 and older, that's my target audience. So how do you define your message around that? So really pulling out that, because your customers are going to help you with that. But if you're trying to be everything to everybody, it's going to be very difficult to customize your product and your service to that specific audience. Now you'll have bleed over and to others, and you'll have maybe people that call into you, but you also got to be willing to say, we're not a right fit. And I think that's hard for people to do sometimes.
Thank you. So someone asked, at a networking event, you're saying you just introduce yourself and your company and that is it with the elevator speech, or what are the next steps after that?
Right, the elevator speech is the introduction, a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the company and maybe a differentiator. But then it's a Q&A after that, right? If you're the first one to go, ask them, hey, John, what do you do? Great, thanks. And then it's that dialogue, getting to know the person, not just the business. How long you been in business? Oh, okay. If they didn't say, so you're having a conversation. I think what happens to a lot of people is 15 minutes later, they're done talking about themselves and the person's ready to walk away. And I think my whole kind of avenue for this is it's really a conversation, and that elevator speech is the start of the conversation. It's not the conversation.
Great. So someone asked, once they identify these differentiators, how can they start implementing these in their business, implementing these in how they sell, or where are they putting these? What should they be doing with them?
Great question, because your differentiator should be part of your core message. So all your employees should be singing from the same song sheet, right? So once you've identified these differentiators in your why, your purpose, your problem solving, how your approach, everybody within your organization should be talking the same way. So if I talk to someone in customer service, or I talk to the owner, or I talk to the delivery guy, we're all singing from the same song sheet. You're not just saying, hey, my customer service is great. You're talking about the specifics of what makes your customer service great. And then if you're going to government contracting, you put those on your capability statement. You have a one-page flyer that you use, and it definitely belongs in your sales presentation if you do PowerPoints, or even in your dialogue, and then specifically on your website in the About Us section on your website. You can label them differentiators, or you can just label what makes us unique. How can we help you? This is how we can help you. This is how we differentiate from our competitors. This was what makes us unique.
Thank you. And someone asked a little bit, I know you mentioned when you were talking about giving the elevator speech at an event, and getting the ROI out of the event, your purpose is to, meet people, but generate leads. It comes down to generating leads. And I asked a little bit about where's the line between marketing and generating leads, or are they kind of
Well, that's a great question, because to me, marketing is about generating leads. Brand awareness is part of marketing, but the big brands, the nationally recognized brands, they spend most of their marketing dollars on brand awareness. A small business, most people, quite frankly, have never heard of you, right? So brand awareness is part of your strategy, but the biggest part of your marketing efforts are one-on-one relationship building. Unless you're spending a ton of money on SEO and driving people to your website, they can drive to your website, but are they converting? Are they converting into leads? So we need to be thinking of marketing in terms of lead generation. And if I'm at a networking event, what is the ROI from that? If I'm at a trade show, I'm going to have clients stopping by my booth. Are they good leads? Are they leads down the road? So we need to identify these leads. So you need to develop a strategy that says, what are my touch points? What is my campaign, if you will, against these leads that turn them into customers? So that's marketing to me. I think the website is marketing, but if it's not generating leads, then what's the point of having the website? If you're doing social media and it's not generating leads, then what's the point of doing social media? As one of my mentors would say, you only have so many ergs of energy, and you can't, as a business owner, go into every different direction of social media and marketing and all that. So if it's not generating a lead for you, then my solution is then make it generate a lead for you, or do something different.
Great. And then another question here. In the age of COVID over the past year, and right now, how can businesses virtually network and meet new prospects and all of that? What's your recommendation?
That's a great question. And, sometimes I think we get, Zoom fatigue, but a lot of these entities are doing meetings on Zoom and doing network meetings on Zoom. Go to the larger organizations. So there's virtual and hybrid trade shows. The chambers are doing virtual events. The associations are doing virtual events. The key here is being present and asking questions and getting your name out there. So if you're a checkerboard square like the Brady Bunch and your camera's off and you're not engaging and you're doing email and you're only listening, you're not networking. But if you're face-to-face with somebody, you've got the checkerboard square, you're seeing John Frank from XYZ company, you can chat them up in the chat, you can write down that, hey, they attended that meeting, they had a great question, you ask a question, and then you follow up. So there's key ways to engage, and there's other ways just to be present. So, don't just be present, be engaged.
And then someone asked, kind of on the flip side of that, is there any alternative ways they can get their business out there if they don't like networking events, or if that's just not their thing?
Yeah, that's tough because it's about building relationships, right? It's about differentiating you. So, if you're not comfortable doing that, then you need to have one of your key staff do that. If they're a solid number two. I'm going to give you a story. This is a great story about my uncle and my brother who started a business. And they were like, where are the leads coming from? So I sat them down and I said, as the business owner, you may not have realized this. You may be a great, designer of this product, and I don't want to get into what they specifically did, but as the business owner, you are the number one salesperson, whether you like it or not. So you're going to have to probably step outside your comfort zone because it's really the only way to grow your business. One of my best friends is a lawyer, and he graduated from law school, and he was debating whether I should go to work for a big law firm or start my own firm. And I said, well, if you start your own firm, you got to be in sales. He said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, how are you going to get the clients? You don't have any. You can't get clients to refer you, so it's really your know, like, and trust list, right? So if you're uncomfortable starting out at the networking event, write down your know, like, and trust list. So get your favorite beverage and open Excel and go through your LinkedIn, go through your college alumni book or your key alumni, and write down and put their title, their name, their email address, and develop a campaign strategy around this group of people that's unique to that group of people. And maybe they're 1 degree away from that big entity that you want to go to.
Another question here. Someone said, once they've identified their differentiators, and the preface, they said they're a younger company. Once they've identified their differentiators and what they want to be and who they are as a company, how can they cross that bridge of trust? Because they might not have as much credibility because they're a younger company. If they meet someone, how can they? Yeah,
that goes back to your story, the why you. So it becomes, what's your differentiator as a business owner? So it comes down to founders experience, founders differentiators. Until you build a client base, it's about you and building your trust and credibility. So you work for this large entity and you have this expertise, and you decided to spin out of this organization because you thought you could be more responsive to clients, because you work for a bigger organization that really lost its way in really developing client relationships. And I thought that I could do a better job of helping my customers solve problems or provide solutions. So it becomes the purpose of you and building that trust and relationship on that level as your company builds a past performance.
And then someone kind of piggybacked off what you mentioned about the story about your friend, the referral program. When they're a younger company kind of growing that base, growing the customer base, they asked about a referral program. Is that something a lot of small businesses?
I'm a big believer in a very structured referral program that is focused on your current customers. And one of the ways you can do that is ask them about a referral program, because too often we ask for referrals, but we don't give them any ideas. If your product or service fits their customers or fits something that they do, then you can say something like, hey, John, I know you've been a valued customer for the last year and a half. There's who is, clients of yours that you feel like could benefit from our service, who's your lawyer, who's your accountant, get specific when you're asking for referrals. And then, if you want to reward them, great. But a referral program that sits on the website and static and does nothing is not going to do anything. So it really has to be engaged. It has to be personal. It has to be a relationship.
And then another question here. Someone said, I know my people are the difference. They make the company, they're the difference maker, but everyone says that.
Yep.
Everyone says, my employees, we do things differently. So what's the proper way to differentiate your people?
Well, what unicorns do you have on your staff that you hired? And get specific. My technician has been through Sigma this training, Sigma this training. He knows how to really understand your business. He really has been there. He's worked for larger organizations. He understands the process. He understands what it takes to be successful. And the reason why he left this other organization is because they weren't doing it right. And he wanted to come here and he wanted to do it the right way to solve those problems. So it's really turning the reason why they're working for you, turning it out to your customer and understanding that there is a reason why you're attracting these great employees, because attracting employees is also a differentiator, right? Hiring those people and getting those people to work for you and be part of the solution, because onboarding and all of that is a sales process too. So how do you attract the best employees? That's your differentiator. It could also be the process you go through to find your employees. I don't hire just anybody off the street. We go through this hiring process. So that's our differentiator. We vet them. We understand that they have the customer's solution in mind. And we all have that same attitude within this organization. We're not just numbers. We're not just machines. We're not just widget makers. So going through that process can also be a differentiator.
And that's funny because this question ties in perfectly with what you just answered. And it's on the flip side of that. You said your employees, they can be your differentiator. Someone said, what about my customers? Can their business's customers be a differentiator for them, who they serve? Absolutely,
because that goes back to, understanding who your target audience is and understanding your relationship between them. So many small businesses, the business owner will leave the organization they left, or they get 2 or 3 clients, and those 2 or 3 clients represent 70, 80% of their business. What happens if you lose one of those, right? It's a big impact to the business. So one of the reasons why you have to do that networking and be out there is to find business, be a hunter, if you will. So building new relationships and understanding that, and asking your current customers, if you have 3 customers that are your biggest clients, and asking them, maybe one won't do anything for you. Maybe they're a big brand and they don't like giving referrals, and that's great, but you've got to ask. You don't ask, you don't get. And building that relationship and understanding those things is key.
Great. Yeah, I agree. A question here. Can I use my established vendor network and supply chain as a differentiator for my company? And how would I convey that to people? How would I sell that?
Absolutely, especially during COVID, right? We've had supply chains all over the place, right? So how do you have your supply chain different from your competitors? Do you have multiple chains, not just to the distribution level, but maybe back to the manufacturing or back to the source? That can be a huge differentiator based on delivery times, based on responsiveness, based on customization, because I do have such a diverse vendor channel or vendor links. So that also can differentiate you if you're in a commodity type situation with price and offering different levels of quality and different levels of service. You just want something on price. Here's something that's, kind of a commodity, but you really want something that's unique and different. That's when you get into your better quality, better price, better positioning, better relationships. So you can also do that kind of thing as well.
Awesome. A question here that came in: do I need to have a written process for something to be classified as a differentiator? For example, I think our production quality is something that differentiates our business, but I don't know how I would prove that to someone.
Well, that's great because, you know, talking it through will differentiate yourself. Do you have specifications that you use that are different? Do you use machines that are different? Do you use a process of quality control that's different? Do you use a material that's different? What's specifically within that process? And to answer your question, yes, all your processes should be written out. And that process in itself could be a differentiator. Time to delivery, time to manufacture, taking something from concept to finished product. Do you guys do long runs or short runs? Do you do prototypes or do you do no prototypes? All those things can be differentiators in the manufacturing world, because some people will come to you just because you do prototypes and short runs. Others will come to you just because you do long runs. Some of them will say because you have 0.0001 percentage of quality, that's why we come and do business with you, because your people are trained to this level of this. That's why we come to you. So as a small business owner, you should have all your processes written down, your hiring process, your sales process, your campaign process, your manufacturing process, whatever you go through should be written out so that everybody can be on the same sheet of paper.
Thank you. It goes back to that quote, you can't manage what you don't measure, right? You have to
absolutely
have to measure that. A question here. So what's the difference between a differentiator and my value proposition?
It's really tomato, right? Benefits, differentiators, value proposition really kind of ties in together. It's how you articulate them and how deep and broad you get, but they're interchangeable. I love this. This is awesome. Lots of great questions.
Oh yeah, we had some great questions. Another one here. How do I develop and apply differentiator strategy for solving problems and projects for the U.S. Space Force?
That's a great question. What is Space Force's mission? What are they trying to accomplish? You can sell a widget to them and it's a commodity, and that's one approach. But if you're really trying to sell a solution to them, so find out what they care about, right? And build that relationship with the procurement officer, build the relationship with the project managers, the engineers behind the scenes. And that takes time. You can be reactive and bid to things, and maybe even the blind dog finds its food bowl when you move it around and win one. But you're not going to be sustainable and grow the business by just randomly throwing darts at the board and hoping one hits the bullseye. You have to be intentional, and you have to go through the process. And Space Force is no different than any other organization out there. It's the long road, not the short road.
Great.
So,
thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
And then a question here then, on the flip side of that, if someone's narrowing in on one prospect, they said they don't want to exclude potential clients by being too focused and have a hyper-driven message for one prospect. How do they find that balance?
Great question, because when you're specifically targeting one client, you want to customize your message. You still want to have, that's why identifying your customers and your verticals are so important. As I said on your website, if you're targeting, all three, government, residential, and commercial, then you want to write your differentiators. They may technically be the same differentiators, but they may have different pictures, different stories behind them. I don't want to advertise anybody's website, but there's some great websites out there that have, basically they're targeting their audience toward the commercial. And in their commercial, they have pictures that speak to the commercial. They have language that speaks to the commercial. And then they also target residential. So they have pictures of homes and families and that. So it's relatable. And then in the government tab, they have government buildings and government entities. And they may be selling the same products, but their message is different. And I think you can customize your message a little bit here and there to be broad, And then when you're one-on-one with Eric or you're one-on-one with that procurement officer, then you get very specific to their needs. If they don't need everything you do, you don't talk about everything you do. I think you could have too much to say, right? But you really ask them discovery questions and you peel the onion back and you discover what's important to them, and then you address that. And I think we all do it when we're shopping and buying, but we forget to do it when we're selling, right? Think about when you're going to buy. What are the questions and what is the process you do? Because this is really, if you really think about it, and I'm sorry I got to this very at the end, and I hope there's still people on the call, but it's really a buying process and not a selling process. You really got to think about the buyer and what's important to them. And because we all go through that buying process. If we buy on Amazon, it's because click, 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 click here, it's cheap, it's on Prime, and we can get it tomorrow. But think about what is a unique product that we buy? What is the process we go through? And you can't necessarily sell the way you buy, because if you're a very detailed oriented person and you're trying to sell to somebody who's big picture, you get into too much detail, you're getting in the weeds. And I know I'm getting in the weeds now, but sales is such a relationship thing, and understanding and just going through the nuances of it it's almost like psychology, right? It's how do you go through all of that to push through and say, well, geez, all I'm really trying to do is sell this pen. The pen's 59 cents. Can't be that hard. Well, I can buy that pen from a million different places.
That's an excellent way to look at it. I've never thought of it like that. Here's a question. Someone's saying, so are you recommending us on our website or collateral? They mentioned website specifically, just create something that says differentiators or a tab or something to have these on their website?
Yeah, it can really be in the about us, and I like the what makes us unique, why us, those kind of things. You can label it differentiators too. There's 50 different ways to do it. But writing those differentiators in the reader's eyes, right? So put yourself in their shoes and read those as if you're reading them as if you want to buy from you. And then you really get a different perspective on the language within those differentiators. And yes, what I'm saying is you want to put those in your website, you want to put those in your marketing material, you want to put those in your PowerPoint, you want to put those in your language, and everybody within your organization should be knowledgeable about what differentiates you, what's your unique value proposition, what are your benefits, all interchangeable.
Awesome, thank you. What are some of the differentiators a landscaper can have?
Well, so many landscapers out there, right? So, what vetting process do you go through for your people? I mean, is there a safety issue with, COVID, masking? I know you're outside, but you have to interact with the client. What safety protocols do you go through? What equipment do you use that you're going to go through? Are you going to show up on time every week? Are you going to show up at the same time every week at the same day? What happens if it rains? Do you call the client and say, hey, I know we were scheduled to come on this day, but it's raining today. I'm going to come out tomorrow. That would be huge. If I knew when the guy would come every day within a certain range, and they would call me if they're not coming, if they had an equipment breakdown or something like that. The guy just shows up. I never know. What is the process you go through? Are you going to, I heard a long time ago that, mowing your yard in different directions helps the grass grow better. Is there some environmental thing that you guys do differently? Do you guys do other services other than just cutting, edging, and weed whacking? I mean, if you're really trying to differentiate yourself, be holistic. Weed the garden, trim the bushes, do landscaping, plant bushes, plants, trees, all of that. So be a full service. Hey, if you're small and you want to really differentiate yourself, everything on the outside is fair game. Do pressure washing, do pool cleaning. You can get way outside your core competency, but what does that client want, and how can you grow your business?
Thank you. Someone put us on the hot seat here at the SBDC. They said, so how does the SBDC differentiate itself from a paid consulting firm? Great question.
I mean, we bring, experts of different varying backgrounds. You know, when you pay a consulting firm, you are going to get potentially, you know, one expert in one area. Maybe it's a sales consulting firm, maybe it's a finance consulting firm. We bring a lot of that under one umbrella. And then we also bring volunteer consultants in, to experts maybe in your field or your industry that can help you. We also have no time limit. You know, you can work with us, you know, an hour a week, an hour a month, an hour a quarter. We also have a lot of different materials out there, you know, these processes that are, you know, resources in writing, these webinars. You know, we have government contracting experts, we have international trade experts. So we have a lot of different expertise within the organization. And as you said, it's at no cost. So, you know, the key here is we don't want to say don't go to those as well. You know, some people take us a little bit and some people use us a lot. So, you know, just like in the government contracting world, you can have somebody pay to register you in SAM, pay to register you for your HubSpot, but you could do it free yourself. So it's all about time and ROI. So understanding that, you know, we're one resource, we may not be the only resource. You also need to have, you know, potentially a paid lawyer, potentially a paid accountant. You know, you need to have your, you know, your core group around you that you can call for advice anytime, and we can be one of those resources.
Great answer there. We'll take I think we have one or two more here.
Okay.
And I know you kind of touched on this a little bit, but this is so important. I want to make sure we answer this clearly. Someone said they're at a networking event or they're meeting with a prospect, you know, briefly, maybe they have 3, 4, 5 minutes after they give the elevator pitch initially. What's the conclusion? What's the main takeaway they need to make sure they get across? Is it their team, their benefits? I mean, what do they need to go away with saying that was a success?
What is the next step? I mean, that's, you know, you go in with, you know, the purpose is I'm going to introduce my company and learn a little bit about them. The process I'm going to go through is I'm going to ask them questions. And I'm going to see if they're a prospect or not. Maybe in 1 or 2 questions you can see if they are or they aren't, and maybe you've ruled them out. If they are not a prospect anymore, you can still follow up. If I'm leaving a trade show, I'm leaving with the next steps. Hey, I'll call you in a couple of days. I'll send you an email. Hey, let's get together for lunch. Let's do something. So, you know, if you feel like they're a great prospect, they're a unicorn, you're a unicorn, you match, there should be an introduction to the next step before you leave, whether it's just verbal or a scheduled next event. Hey, let's get together for lunch tomorrow, or let's meet at my office tomorrow, or simple as I'm going to call you to schedule, or I'm going to send you a quick email with the information that you wanted, and we'll schedule an appointment from there. So question, Eric, too many people do leave things without next steps.
Right. I know you all always talk about having that next step and taking customers on a journey, kind of getting in that mindset. I want to invite anyone now, if anyone has any last questions, to go ahead and put those in the chat. We certainly appreciated everyone tuning in today. And I want to reiterate, you know, this is something Michael does a lot with clients, right? Meets with businesses of every industry and help them figure out what their differentiators really are. And everyone has them, right? But it is hard sometimes to look from the outside in and think clearly and figure out what those are. So you can schedule a meeting with Michael. He'd be happy to go through your company and discuss that. I'm going to pull up the last slide here, which is going to have Michael's contact there. You can see his email. michael.towns@ucf.edu, and I'll be sending a follow-up email out, so everyone will have the slides with Michael will be copied on there, and you can shoot us back email questions, or if you really want to get into this stuff, whether you're government, looking to sell to government or private, I recommend meeting with Michael. He does a great job of going through this with clients, and he has a whole process to really drive into these.
And Eric, that's our next step.
There it is. Always have a next step, like you said.
Well, thank you everybody for joining today. We had over 100 people today. We really appreciate your time. I hope you took away a golden nugget, because that's what it's all about, is if you can take away 1 or 2 nuggets from every interaction you have, you can count that as a success. So thank you very much. On behalf of Eric, thank you for being the controller and helping me navigate this. And we appreciate your time and can't wait to see you again.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day, and look out for that follow-up email. Take care.